Welcome to another episode from the series, Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda been number one. In this series, we go back in time to highlight a number one R&B or rap song from the past. And then we reveal a top 10 song released during the same time period that woulda, coulda, or shoulda been number one on Billboard's R&B and hip hop charts. So let's go back to 2002, between the months of March and June. The number one song on the R&B charts, Foolish by Ashanti. Foolish was the smash debut single from Ashanti's tremendously successful self-titled debut album. Ashanti was already putting the R&B and hip-hop world on notice before the release of Foolish due to the huge successes of radio-friendly hit duets she recorded with rappers Ja Rule and Fat Joe. Signed to Murder Inc., led by Irv Gotti, one of hip-hop and R&B's most confident maestros, Ashanti came out strong on her debut album. It sold a very impressive 500,000 copies in its first week. Ashanti had one of the biggest debut albums in the history of R&B music. Produced by Irv Gotti, Foolish samples DeBarge's 1983 record Stay With Me, which fans of the 2000s knew very well due to the huge number one hit, One More Chance, the remix by the Notorious B.I.G., who had brilliantly used that same sample just a few years prior. Ashanti's version, on Foolish, is heartfelt, filled with anguish and passion. The song is about a woman who keeps coming back to her man, even though he keeps breaking her heart due to his cheating. It's a well-written record that I'm sure many women were able to relate to due to personal experiences in their own relationships. Biggie's One More Chance was for all those aspiring players, the fellas, with the added appeal for the ladies. Ashanti's Foolish was definitely a record that was talking directly to the ladies, but it was the kind of ballad that players could vibe to as well. So let's talk about the song's performance on the hip-hop and R&B charts. Foolish entered the charts at the number 65 position. In its first month, it jumped 26 spots, going from number 65 to number 39. It took 7 weeks to reach the top 20. It took 9 weeks to crack the top 10, and 10 weeks to move into the top 5. Foolish spent over 4 months, 17 weeks in total, in the top 10, and 14 weeks in the top 5. Foolish became the number one song on the R&B charts on March the 30th, 2002, taking 11 weeks to reach the top spot. Foolish was the number one R&B record for an amazing 10 weeks. It stayed in the top 5 for another 3 weeks after falling from the top spot. Incredibly, the song was the number one record on the pop charts, also for 10 weeks. Foolish spent a total of 41 weeks, nearly an entire year, on the hip-hop and R&B charts, and is the biggest song of Ashanti's career. Foolish is a great soulful number one record by one of R&B's brightest stars of the 2000s. But there was another song. This one, the third single from the coming of age album of the biggest R&B artist of the 2000s. An R&B top 10 that woulda, coulda, shoulda been number one. Can you guess the name of the song? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. Usher successfully made that not-so-easy transition from a teenage heartthrob in the 90s to a still young but mature R&B star in the 2000s. His style, swag, subject matter, and overall sound developed and evolved into the passionate, soulful renditions that fans heard on the 8701 album. Usher has the best voice and dance combo attack to grace the musical stage since the late great Michael Jackson, which is clearly evident on the 8701 album. Written by Pharrell and produced by the Neptunes, You Don't Have to Call is a standout song on the 8701 album. The song is about a man who has finally decided to walk away from a relationship in which he feels underappreciated. You Don't Have to Call is Usher's emotional declaration to move on from the troubled relationship and to live again, starting tonight by going out and having a good time. So let's talk about the song's chart performance. You Don't Have to Call entered the charts at the number 79 position. In its first month, it jumped 25 spots, going from number 79 to number 54. It took 10 weeks to reach the top 20. It took 12 weeks to reach the top 10 and 13 weeks to move into the top 5. You Don't Have to Call spent 4.5 months, 18 weeks total in the top 10, and like Foolish, it spent 14 weeks in the top 5. You Don't Have to Call peaked at number 2 on the R&B charts on March the 23rd, 2002, taking 14 weeks to reach its peak. You Don't Have to Call was the number 2 song on the R&B charts for 7 consecutive weeks, 8 weeks total at that position. After falling from the number 2 spot, the song remained in the top 5 for 4 of the following 7 weeks before finally dropping out of the top 10. The song was a top 5 record on the pop charts, peaking at number 3. You Don't Have to Call spent a total of 43 weeks on the hip hop and R&B charts. And while the first 2 singles from the 8701 album, You Remind Me and You Got It Bad, were both number 1 hits, You Don't Have to Call is arguably the most memorable record on the 8701 album. Ashanti's Foolish took less time to reach the top 10 and the top 5 than Usher's You Don't Have to Call. Foolish took fewer weeks to reach its peak, which was, of course, the number 1 R&B record on the charts. Foolish stayed at the top of the R&B charts for more consecutive weeks than You Don't Have to Call did at its peak, in the number 2 spot. Plus, Foolish was the number 1 song on the pop charts for just as many weeks as it was on the hip hop and R&B charts. A whopping 10 weeks, 20 weeks combined. However, You Don't Have to Call actually spent 1 week longer in R&B's top 10 and 2 more weeks total on the R&B charts than Foolish. It was the number 2 song for 7 consecutive weeks and the number 3 song for 3 weeks during the 10 total consecutive weeks that Foolish was number 1 on the R&B charts. And the song's peak at number 3 on the pop charts demonstrates a pretty strong overall performance on Billboard. So while Foolish by Ashanti is a great soulful record and deserves its spot at the top of R&B music from late March through early June of 2002, you could definitely make a persuasive argument that You Don't Have to Call by Usher woulda, coulda, shoulda been number 1. What do you think? Thanks for listening to today's episode of Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda Been Number 1. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. And if you're interested in listening to future episodes, then feel free to subscribe to this channel. Make sure you tap on notifications so that you won't miss an episode. And if you choose to, you can buy me a cup of coffee to show your support for this channel. Of course, it's totally up to you. The few minutes that you take out of your day to check out this channel is very appreciated. So until next time, be happy, be safe, spread love, enjoy life, and good old soul music. Peace.